So Scott, what kinds of skills and experience would an in-house IT staff need to have in order to prepare their company for CMMC?
Yeah, I think if I'm a manager of a small business or in a small business, I'd want to see if there's a way we could pull it off with the resources we have.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair place to start, and you'd want to leverage the people and the money you've spent, to get the IT to where it is today. But you've got to think through, do we have the qualifications needed? Do we have that experience that we're going to need? And if I'm an IT person in a small business, I guess I'm looking in the mirror and I'm saying, do I have that experience that's needed? So one area is CMMC knowledge. You've got to dive into the 110 requirements. And by the way, the next layer is the 320 assessment objectives that breaks down the 110. We've talked through that earlier this year. But you've got to deeply understand those requirements from a technical perspective, and I'll say from an assessment perspective, because you've got to outthink the assessor, or maybe that's not the way to say it, but get ahead of and be prepared for that assessment. So CMMC knowledge, number one. Number two, cybersecurity expertise. I think there's a distinction between general IT experience and cybersecurity experience. Cybersecurity is a niche within the world of IT. It's a specialty. There are specialized certifications you can get for cybersecurity, for example. There are jobs that specialize in cybersecurity, and they're much more advanced generally than an IT generalist would necessarily have. So I think having experience in best practices, in the technologies, in encryption, in risk assessments, if those aren't things that you've done in the past, you need to think about how difficult it's going to be to do this without having that kind of experience. Then dealing with the regulatory side of this, keep in mind that your company is accountable through the contracts with the government. Your company is accountable to meet the requirements. You can't delegate the accountability. You can't say, oh, well, we have a vendor and they're taking care of all that, so go talk to them. No, your company is responsible for protecting CUI, and you have to be familiar with the NIST 800-171, and you have to be familiar with the DFARS regulations. That's what's in the contract. You got to read the language, understand what it means, understand how it can be addressed within your company so that you remain in compliance. Then you have to be able to implement all the technologies. Maybe you've done that before. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you're, I'm going to sound demeaning, and I don't mean to be, but I've said this earlier this year. Maybe you're the nephew of the boss and you come in on Saturday to keep the Outlook running. Maybe that's the level of IT support a company has, is a part-time, let's just say a part-time IT person who isn't even a full-time IT. They may not have any professional training. They don't have any cybersecurity experience. Starts to raise the question, do we need to look at plan B? That's today's. Well, we're going to talk about plan B and plan C. So we got different ways you can do this, right? And so you got to be able to implement, the servers, the networks. If you're going to go to the cloud, you got to learn the cloud and all the different aspects of that. Vendors, if you're using third-party products or hosted systems, you've got to be able to evaluate those third parties and whether they're in compliance, because again, you're responsible. The vendor's responsible to you, but you're responsible to the government. Got to be able to monitor, continually monitor security on your network. That's a difficult thing if you don't know how to set it up, how to evaluate it. What are you going to do about 24/7 coverage? There's these aspects of it that get difficult. And then lastly, you got to be able to develop the plans, the policies, the procedures, that show through documentation how your system works, what your practices are as a company, what your processes are in a company, because all of that is wrapped up in the assessment. All of that is wrapped up in the assessment. So small companies may not have this level of IT expertise, and we're not saying that to be critical.
Yeah.
I think we're saying it's a reality. In many areas of a small business, you're limited.
Yeah.
That's the nature of it, right? Maybe in finance, you don't have a full-time finance person. Somebody who does bookkeeping, that's what you've got. Well, who's going to prepare your taxes? Well, you're going to go get an expert and have them prepare your taxes. So I guess we're thinking this is the way to kind of consider this, is you don't have to have it all on staff, in-house, under your control. You can leverage external resources, which is what we're saying here today, to get this done. And lastly, because most IT folks are very busy, they've got a backlog of things to do. They're never caught up. There's always a crisis. So how do you fit this in with what you're busy doing anyway? So maybe we beat this to the ground at this point, but I think I'm just trying to bring this scenario forward to say there's got to be a way to handle this compliance, even if you don't have in hand the expertise that you need. Thank you for watching this video to the end. This is part of a longer series on DFARS, NIST, and CMMC compliance produced by Core Business Solutions. Please subscribe to this channel, like this video with a thumbs up, and click the bell to get notified when we drop a new video. Also, we'd appreciate it if you would share this video with your colleagues who need to stay up to speed on DFARS, NIST, and CMMC. Thank you, and we'll see you again in the next video.